In the heart of a sleepy, fog-draped village there stood a small stone chapel, its steeple a lonely finger pointing towards the heavens. For centuries, it had been the town's silent keeper of secrets, its pews holding the prayers and grief of generations. Father Michael was its latest custodian, a man whose faith was as solid and weathered as the chapel's ancient stones. His days began before the sun, in the quiet solitude of the early morning, preparing for the day's services. But one Tuesday, a sound, as ethereal as it was unexpected, broke the pre-dawn stillness. It was singing. A choir, their voices rising in a hymn so pure and resonant it seemed to make the very air vibrate. Father Michael paused, his hand hovering over the communion wafers. He knew every soul in the village. He knew the choir members by name, by their off-key notes and their Sunday best. This was not them. This choir was different. Their harmony was perfect, flawless, a sound not of this world. He stepped out from the sacristy, his footsteps echoing in the vast emptiness. The chapel was deserted. The pews were vacant, bathed in the soft gray light filtering through the stained glass windows. Yet the singing continued, a beautiful, haunting melody that seemed to come from the stones themselves, from the very air he was breathing. It was a hymn of farewell, a song of peace, yet it sent a shiver down his spine. He stood alone, a solitary audience for a choir he could not see. The spectral hymn faded with the first rays of dawn, leaving a silence more profound than before. Father Michael, deeply unsettled, walked towards the main altar. The large, leather-bound altar book, where the names of the faithful were recorded for prayer, lay open. He hadn't touched it yet this morning. His heart hammered against his ribs as he looked down at the page. There, in elegant, unfamiliar cursive, was a list of names. He read the first one, then the second, and a cold dread washed over him. He knew these names. They were the names of the 5 people most recently laid to rest in the churchyard, souls who had departed this world just weeks before. It was as if they had returned for one final service, their voices the last echo of their time on earth. The phenomenon repeated itself. Every Tuesday before sunrise, the disembodied choir would fill the chapel with their heavenly music, and every Tuesday Father Michael would find a new list of names in the altar book, the names of the village's most recently deceased. The news, as it always does in small towns, began to trickle out. Whispers turned into stories, and stories into local legend. People called it the choir that sang with no voices. Some were terrified, avoiding the chapel grounds after dusk. Others were drawn by a morbid curiosity, hoping to catch a strain of the ghostly melody. A few, however, found comfort in it. The families of the departed saw it as a sign, a beautiful final farewell from their loved ones, a confirmation that they had found peace and were singing with the angels. A young woman named Elara, whose grandmother was among the first names to appear in the book, started visiting the chapel every Tuesday morning. She would sit in the back pew, not to hear the ghosts, but to feel a connection to the grandmother she missed so dearly. She told Father Michael, "It's not scary, Father. It's beautiful. It's like she's telling me she's okay." Her perspective began to shift the village's fear into something closer to acceptance and even reverence. The ghostly choir was no longer a haunting. It was a blessing, a sacred weekly event that wove the worlds of the living and the dead together in a tapestry of song. Father Michael, initially unnerved, began to see it this way too. He started announcing the names from the book during his morning service not as a grim reminder of loss, but as a celebration of lives lived, a final encore for the souls who had once prayed in these very pews. He even took it upon himself to research the hymn. Digging through the church's oldest archives, he discovered it was an ancient lullaby, a song of passage meant to guide souls peacefully from one life to the next. It hadn't been sung in the church for over 200 years. The spirits weren't just singing. They were performing a forgotten ritual, a rite of their own. This discovery changed everything. The Tuesday morning service was transformed. It became a bridge between memory and eternity. Father Michael would light a candle for each name written in the book as the ethereal music filled the air. He would lead the small, growing congregation of family members and curious townsfolk not in fear, but in quiet contemplation. They would sit together in the pre-dawn darkness, sharing in this mysterious sacred concert. Years passed. Father Michael grew old, his hair turning the color of winter frost. The choir continued its faithful weekly performance. It became a cherished tradition, a unique and beautiful part of the village's identity. When Father Michael eventually passed away, the entire village gathered for his funeral. The following Tuesday, the new young priest entered the chapel before sunrise, a little nervous, wondering if the choir would sing for the man who had been their sole audience for so long. As the first light of dawn touched the stained glass windows, the familiar celestial hymn began to swell, filling the empty space with its perfect harmony. The young priest walked to the altar and opened the book. At the top of a fresh page in that same elegant, otherworldly script was a single name: Father Michael. His own flock had come to sing him home. The legend of the choir lives on, a testament to the enduring connections that not even death can sever. It's a reminder that sometimes the most profound messages come not from the voices we can see, but from the echoes they leave behind in the quietest corners of the world. What do you think? A terrifying haunting or a beautiful miracle? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. If you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you do not miss our next exploration into the mysterious and the unknown. Until next time, stay curious.